Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. This long, arduous journey to join us here in cyberspace. So thank you. We've got a great presentation by Mr. Bowser. Me personally, I'm really looking forward to this one because I dabble with motion graphics and other things like that. So I'm a little bit familiar with Lottie. So I'm really looking forward to your presentation. And say a big thank you to ILM, Jason. So
yes, thank you.
ILM, Jason, you guys host us and have supported us for many years now. So thank you, appreciate it.
Happy to do it. I gotta tell you, these last couple months in particular, you guys have been a cheap date. So I gotta say, this isn't. I mean, I can't wait till we get together in person. Well, actually, I can wait till we get together.
We'll have to, but I've been called much
again.
worse than that, Jason.
All right, great.
Right.
So anyway, happy to help out. Happy to help out. So
yep. So thank you, Adam. Do we have any talking points, any news things to discuss, or?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to share, and I'm sure everybody on this call has probably already heard of this, but everybody, I'm assuming, was aware of the gigantic Twitter hack that went down yesterday, early evening or like late afternoon, I think it was.
yeah.
So I guess for anyone who's not aware, I'll just kind of give the brief overview. A number of very high profile Twitter accounts were targeted and had public messages going out from those accounts saying that if you give us X number of Bitcoin or give us X number of dollars through Bitcoin, we'll give you double that back. So they were trying to make it seem like it was going to be some big charitable community thing where, you know, if you gave Elon Musk, for example, $1,000, he'd give you $2. And they did this with Apple. They did it with former President Obama, Joe Biden, a number of like very high profile accounts. And I think the FBI, I've heard, is now investigating this because I'm guessing that this was some large state level organized thing. We'll see. I mean, I think it should, and then I think what was even more crazy was that Twitter was able to then, to try and circumvent this from happening further, they actually disabled all verified Twitter accounts from tweeting for a number of hours. So it's just kind of crazy to think of like what, I mean, Bitcoin is, I mean, I think they raised like 100 grand or whatever in the matter of hours that this went on for. And I think it was actually probably turned off well before that, but to think what, you know, a state actor could do with something like this. I mean, they could turn, you know, markets over, economies over, start wars. I mean, it's pretty alarming to think what could really be done with this kind of attack / hack. So I'm curious to see what comes out of this. But yeah, that was the big news item that actually happened recently that I wanted to discuss and see if anybody had any other insights on or news, or, you know, maybe I'm behind on what's current with that, or any other news items for that matter.
Sure. I heard that it was they social engineered some employees to give them access.
Oh.
So I don't know if it was state level or not, but here's the upside to this. Think about it. Twitter, there was a lot of blue checks, has verified people who could not tweet for hours, right? That had to be a net positive on the human race, right?
Yes.
I mean, considering how vile Twitter is. So
yeah, I think the only correct response is two-factor authentication for every single tweet. I mean, that's
you said for every single tweet?
Every single
right.
tweet,
I just think we just need to slow this down. You know, I mean, that would be the best thing for the platform. You know, we got to be secure.
Yeah.
Or I think they've been talking about nationalizing Twitter, where it's more of like a government-controlled, to some degree, thing versus letting the tech giants control.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What could possibly go wrong with state-run media?
Seriously,
I'm not saying I'm for it.
Oh my God,
that would probably be terrible.
Yeah. having worked at the Star Tribune and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel for the better part of 2 decades, the idea of any state-controlled media gives me the heebie-jeebies. Much rather put it in the hands of billionaires like Glenn Taylor. So I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take that over government. So yeah. The interesting part that I took away from what you said, Adam, is that they censored all of those accounts for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So those accounts could not post anything for 2 hours, which, I mean, it's the right thing to do, or it's censorship. And I don't think it's censorship, but I mean, that's kind of a slippery slope. I mean,
it's not censorship because it's a private corporation. They can do whatever they want.
Well, I think it was an emergency thing at the time because they didn't know what was happening and they didn't want to spiral out of control. Because if you can hack people's accounts to that level, you know, who's to say that they wouldn't post some crazy message from Trump that Trump's like, yeah, kill all whoever or something, right? And then, you know, and I'm not saying this to defend Trump or anything like that. I'm just using this as an example. But you could basically start a war with Twitter by making it seem that people said X, Y, or Z, and then have other people who are also verified to verify what that other account said. Get what I'm saying? So there's verification, and it looks like, oh, this person must have said that because all these other people are confirming it as well, right?
And I think that was one of the things I think was interesting, is that when I was kind of reading up on this and doing some listening on YouTube this morning, it was talking about how, you know, did they get access to DMs? Was it just the ability to send out, you know, tweets? To what level, you know, was this information available to them for how long? How long did they have access to it prior to them actually sending out the messages? And, you know, to what you said, Steve, all the messages that I saw that got hacked were just saying, send Bitcoin to this address, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens if it's more of a coordinated thing where they have, you know, prominent figure A say something, and then figure B, they have that person like kind of piggyback on what they said, and all of a sudden it's this conversation, then it looks more organic and real to the people like who follow those people. And
do you guys remember, it was a number of years ago that, was it Obama's account? Somebody's account got hacked, and it basically, they put out some message about something. I think it was a CEO's account. And basically somebody faked a message because they hacked their account, and then that stock took a dive like 90% or something, and the person shorted the stock and made like millions of dollars within minutes, and then they ended up getting caught by the FBI like, I don't know, a couple weeks later or something. But like, I mean, Twitter, social media can have real world consequences.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think there was that, and I think there was some other episodes where crazy stuff happened based on propaganda on social media or misinformation.
yeah, that was the one.
Or no?
I vaguely, was that like 2013?
That's what I want to think, but
It was a while back, right?
Or I could just be making it all up. I mean, who knows? Let's see.
Anyways, any other current events that anybody would like to discuss this evening, other than the Twitter hack? I guess other than the current news, if anyone has any or knows of any job openings or has any job openings themselves, you know, we're hoping to try and connect folks. So if you've got anything, feel free to put something in the chat or unmute your mic, and hopefully we can just get the word out. And if you want, I could also post it in our follow-up email tomorrow morning.
I have one. I'll post it in the chat too. I've got a .NET Core opportunity with AWS experience being a nice to have. It's a 6-month engagement, so it's covering for someone who's out on paternity leave. So it's not likely to be long term. but it is an opportunity. It's with a company that does Xamarin. So it's not impossible that the person would be doing Xamarin. We've already placed one Xamarin developer there. It's with it's a company that a former ILMer is now up working at in South Dakota, but obviously all the work is remote. But this would be straight up .NET Core backend work. But if anyone knows of anyone, or if anyone's interested, there's an option in the chat window to send me a note.
Is that the one that you posted on the Slack channel?
Yeah, we had a whole ring of .NET Core opportunities. Boom, 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 rapid fire.
Cool.
We closed most of them. So we closed a Xamarin, 3.NET Core, and Angular, an IoT Edge one, which was cool. You're gonna do some IoT, but yeah. So this is one of the remaining .NET Core ones, like what I posted. So.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I think if there's nothing else, we can get started, and Joe can take it away with his intro and then lead into the presentation.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
So my name is Joe Bowser. I am a Xamarin developer for, what's it been now? 6 years? It's been a while. Doing primarily Xamarin.Forms over that time. I've done a little bit of Xamarin Native. And I like to do stuff with the UI and things like that. So that's kind of what led me into doing some of this Lottie work. I don't know. That's right now I'm on a project working with Scott Kolstock and Frank Markovich, who are both on the call here, and at Polaris. And it's been a fun project. Been on it for a couple of years now. It's been great. So anyway, yeah, let's get started. I'm going to turn my camera off so you guys don't have to look at me the whole time. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. So desktop, where is it? Oh, yeah, there we go. So there we go. Can you guys all see my screen, hopefully?
Yep, I see a web page for Lottie files.
Yep, okay. So here, I'll just close this for now. I don't really have any slides. I was just gonna, so that's not distracting us. So basically, Lottie files are a a JSON representation of a After Effects animation. They are vector graphics that you can plop into your project. They're very small JSON files, and you can plop them into all sorts of different types of projects. So they're kind of cross-platform in that respect. It does require a plugin in a Xamarin project or a web project or something like that, but it's the plugin's really easy to work with, and the animations, once you actually create them, are very easy to work with. So why would you want to use a Lottie file? Like I said, they're cross-platform. They're incredibly small. The animation that I'm going to show you tonight only ends up being about 16K, which most JPEGs and PNGs ends up being bigger than that by a substantial amount when you're put them in a project. So that's nice. The frame rate on them is really high, and the resolution is all vector, so they scale up and they scale down great. They don't lose any resolution. So that's one of the things. Those are the key things behind Lottie that make it a good thing to work with. Actually, I'll close this again. So tonight, what I wanted to do was build an animation for this app I'm calling Flippy Cat. Basically, it's just a coin toss app. And right now, it is in this state. This is the Xamarin project. basically all it does is flip a coin. Right now when you flip, you just get heads or tails at random, well, sort of random, but random enough. And what I wanted to do was have a cat animation in here that would flip and either land on its, or either land heads or tails up. So that's what we will be doing. But let's first talk about the Lottie website, because the Lottie website is a really great resource when you're dealing with Lottie files. First of all, there's resources for learning how to use Lottie files and learning how to build Lottie files, which is really useful. That's where I got most of my information from. And there's also an open library of Lottie animations in here that you can tap into. Most of them are free, but there are some that you need to pay for. But basically, you can just go in here and you can find all sorts of different types of animations for your project if you want to, which is very useful. Like right now in the animations, there's actually some COVID-19 animations, which is very on point. Go in here and you can see all of these different animations that have COVID-19, and there are lots of them that have keywords associated with COVID-19. So if you wanted to do, and put something like this in one of your projects, a website or a Xamarin project or an iOS or Android project, you can do that. You can just pull them down from here, pull down the JSON files and load them into your project with the NuGet package. So that's one of the nice things. Another nice thing that you can do on the website is if you like a particular animation, but you don't like the colors, or like your company or something requires certain types of colors or anything like that, you can actually go in here and edit layers inside of here, which is really kind of powerful and cool. So like, let's say we wanted that blue circle to not be blue anymore. We wanted it to be green. You can just change the color of the blue circle. And now you have a green one. And you could go through and change the text and everything else in here as well if you wanted to. It's nice because most people who are building these files use fairly reasonable layer names when they're building them, so you can tell what's going on. And we'll talk about that once we get into After Effects, and I'll show you how that works. Lottie files are built right now exclusively using After Effects, so you do need to have Adobe After Effects on your computer, which is not super cheap, but it's, I think that the After Effects subscription is like $20 a month if you just get that, and it's not terribly prohibitive if you're using it for work or something like that. So anyway, that's Lottie. You also can access your own collection of items that you've created. So right here under my previews, I have things that I've created for the project that we're working on at Polaris. This isn't everything that I've created, but it's the ones that I've actually uploaded to the website. So, a little spinner, a checkbox, and then we did some animations to help people understand how to take a picture of their license using the application. So anyway, that is kind of the cool, fun stuff you can do on the website. As I said, there are some really good Lottie courses on here. I recommend both of these. They're both good courses and can teach you a lot about how the product works. One of the things to keep in mind with Lottie is that they do render slightly differently. The animations can render slightly differently on different platforms. So if you're going to put them on an iOS or Android device, you can actually go in here and let's go back to the animations. When you click on one of these animations and look at it, you'll get a, there we go. You can get a QR code that you can, there it is, QR code. You can download an application on your phone, on an Android or iOS device called Lottie Files. They're in the app stores. And then you can take a picture of that QR code. It'll actually load up this animation on your device so you can see how it renders on an iOS or Android device, which is really useful because sometimes some of the rendering does come out just a little bit different on each one. And certain features aren't supported universally across all the platforms. For all the stuff that we're going to be doing tonight, it is supported universally because the stuff I'm going to show you tonight is really simple. And there we go. Just take a quick break here. Anybody have any questions before I move on about the website or Lottie files in general?
None here.
Cool. Well, then I'll keep going. Let's dive into the meat and potatoes of this. So the main thing that I wanted to show you today was just how to create basic Lottie animations using After Effects. And so let's talk first about After Effects as a tool. So I'll just give you a quick tour of After Effects. Like most of these big graphics programs, there's all these different panes that do different things. After Effects has this pane over here on the left is your composition pane. Compositions are basically just sequences of animation or sequences of video with animation layered over them, or however you end up using it. For our purposes, they're just going to be short animation sequences. You can have as many compositions in a project as you want. This next pane here, this is the Lottie Files plugin. This is a plugin you have to download. If you have a Adobe membership, and you can go on the website and download this plugin there. And then when you relaunch After Effects, it'll show up here under Windows and Extensions. So Lottie Files. Body Movement is another Lottie Files plugin, but we won't be doing anything with that today because we don't need to. So that's how you end up getting the Lottie Files plugin. This window is your preview pane, so you can see what's going on in the animation. It's also a live pane that you can do things with. So you can draw in here and do stuff as well. So it's not just a preview, you can actually play around and move stuff. This pane over here is additional tools and things like that. We won't be doing anything with that today, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. And this bottom pane down here is really important. This is your timeline pane. So this is where you'll see your various layers and where different, or how they're being acted upon at different times in the timeline. So right now, this timeline is 5 seconds long in this composition. You can edit your composition settings and change it to be whatever duration you want. You can change the resolution, you can change frame rate, you can change the size of the animation. Anyway, so that is the timeline. So now that we've talked about After Effects, let's talk about how After Effects does animation. So
hey, Joe,
animation, yeah.
One question, is there any other tool besides After Effects they're able to do Lottie animation?
Not that I know of. No.
Okay.
So right now, this is the only one I know of. It's pretty much all they talk about on the Lottie website. I'm pretty sure this is the only format for doing it right now, which kind of stinks. I wish there was more like a free open source way to do it, but there doesn't seem to be.
Okay, thank you.
But you can use like I said, you can use all those pre-created Lottie animations that are already on the website. So if you don't want to create them, you can get a whole bunch of them for free from there, which is nice.
How understandable is the JSON format? Like, would you have any shot at
it's pretty dense. It's pretty dense, and a lot of the I can show you. I'll show you what the file looks like after we create one. Yeah, I wouldn't see somebody going in there and just like manually tweaking it by hand too much. I'm sure maybe you could like change a layer color or something like that, but it's not, I don't think it's meant to be manually edited.
Yeah, so on the Lottie Files website, there's a tool menu option, and there it lists there's a Figma plugin, a Lottie editor, and some other conversions.
Yeah, so most of those, so Figma, and if there's a Figma plugin, it's probably for exporting Figma documents into After Effects, actually. I don't think you can create Lottie animations in Figma. Maybe you can. I'm not aware if you can or not.
Okay, cool.
Because there are tools, because you you can bring in, obviously into After Effects, you can bring stuff in from Adobe Illustrator or Figma and things like that. And there are a bunch of plugins, not a bunch, but there's a few plugins created specifically for pulling those kind of graphics into After Effects. And it'll strip out a bunch of extraneous information that you don't need.
Cool.
So how does After Effects do animation? Animation in After Effects is done using something called keyframe animation. And basically keyframe animation is taking sort of various properties. So here's, if you can see down here on the left, lower left side, you see this transform area, and there's various properties on this layer that you can alter, that you can animate. And basically what you're doing is, with keyframe animation, is, let's do position. You set one keyframe and then you set another keyframe over here. So if we move the position, oops, we move the position of this down here. What you're doing there is you're setting up 2 points in time and changes to that particular property on that 2 points in time. And then what After Effects does is it sort of interpolates the difference between the two. So it does kind of the heavy lifting as far as creating all the frames in between the 2 points in time. And that's basically what keyframe animation is. It's a fairly simple way from the user standpoint of being able to animate something through time. So as you can see, that is the square moving. It's the nice thing about After Effects is that everything in here is fairly easy to sort of wrap your head around and understand what you're trying to do at any given point in time. So like, let's say we want this not to just move through that point in time, but we also want it to rotate. We can go set a keyframe at 0 seconds for a rotation of 0. And then if we move to 1 second, and so remember there's 60 frames in between there. We set a rotation of, like, let's say 8 rotations. Now we can animate that moving 8 rotations from one point in time to another. And these keyframes are incredibly easy to move around. So if you wanted this to be a much longer animation or a much longer sequence of animation, then you could do that. And it still only rotates the 8 times around there. It doesn't change that. But anyway, that's sort of the basic premise of keyframe animation, is that the system is interpolating the changes between the object at this point in time versus the object at this point in time. Anybody have any questions about that? Or
Yeah. Do you know if it handles motion blur?
if it does handle motion, I think you can have motion blur, but it's a layered effect that you'd have to put on it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything with that. And then also putting motion blur into the Lottie animation, I don't know if that's supported fully. I've seen some animations on the Lottie website that look like they have motion blur, but I don't know if they're faking it or not.
Right on. Cool.
I mean, this tool is incredibly powerful. I mean, After Effects is a huge program and really powerful. And so there's probably a lot of things in here that I have no idea about. It's just, the stuff I'm going to be showing tonight is like the really simple basic stuff. It's to get you started if you want to explore further. So now with keyframes, one of the things to keep in mind with keyframes is that they are, or that there is a kind of a track or a, I don't know, a curve of how the change is being made. You can look at that curve by hitting this little graph editor and see, like, oops, I have to actually select some keyframes here. So you can see this is just a linear path now of the change. The thing spins and moves at a constant rate as we move it. But you can change that by adding something called easing, which if you've done any animation in programming, easing is something that is used quite a bit. So if we grab both of these and we set some easing on it, keyframe assistant, ease out, it'll actually change the graph of how that looks. So now it's starting out slow and ramping up to its constant speed. And then we'll take a look at that and see that it starts out slow and then gets faster and faster and faster, and then eventually stops. So that's easing out. And then if we go over to these other two keyframes and we do easing in, you can see it actually change here. You'll see it slow, or it starts slow, speeds up, and then slows down again. Now, the nice thing about this graph editor is that you can actually go in here and manually adjust easing on these things, which is really, really handy to tweak your animations to make them look more lifelike. So if we want this to start out really slow and then get really fast and slow down again, that's one of the things you can do with easing in the graph editor. Another sort of shortcut to easing that I use probably more than I should, just because it makes my life simpler, is setting things to this easy ease. And basically that'll set easing on your break or on your keyframes automatically. So there you go. You don't have to choose whether you're easing out or easing in, which is very confusing terminology. Anyway, that's sort of some basics around keyframe animation. I'll just show you another quick basic around
Yeah, just
layering.
to interject
Sure, go ahead.
here. So what you guys through screen sharing are probably seeing is probably not the full effect of easing or the true frame rate of the animation because of the screen sharing through Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm just calling that out because it doesn't look as glorious as it would in person, right?
Sure.
So when you guys go try this out for yourself, you'll understand, how easing makes things look nicer and all the other things, but you won't be able to see the true effect through the screen sharing on Zoom. So anyhow, just want to make a side note on that.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I should have prefaced with that. You're right. Yeah, the screen sharing, your bit rates are going to be probably a lot lower and won't allow you to see some of the stuff that I'm doing here. But anyway, another thing to just to keep in mind is that you use a lot of layers when you're dealing with After Effects animations. Right now we have one shape layer, and that's our square. We can create another shape layer that's just a circle. You can do fun things like parent one layer to another, and then when you play this, so I just parented this circle shape layer to the square shape layer, and now anything that I've done on the square shape layer will actually be applied to the circle shape layer as well. And that's a very useful feature and something to keep in mind when you're building out animations. So there we go. Any other questions or comments on the sort of the first part of this, as far as just the basics of animating with After Effects? All right.
Quick question for me, actually.
Sure.
So, when you came in here, we had that white background, and I, back in the day, along with Steve, used to do flash work. I'm assuming that white background, if you were to actually export this, would it be a transparent background?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But you could.
You
could
can,
provide,
however, like on the Lottie web, we could put a shape layer back there that would give it. It would make it not transparent anymore. But as a background, it is transparent. So when we actually do, well, I can show you on this one. This is sort of the first animation that I created for the Flippy Cat. When I render this out, this white background is not there.
Okay. And then what about sizing? Like, are you able to make things bigger while you're working with it, or are you able to just to zoom in and you're supposed to work within the bounds of this white rectangle or white square?
Zoom is in like this, or?
Well, yeah, you had said everything was vector when it gets exported, so you can scale up, scale down. Like, are you supposed to change like the width or height of elements in this, like of the cat object here, or should you just work in at or out at a different zoom level? Like, is there a width or height property applied to each
Oh, there
element?
is. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, there is. As far as the composition goes, yes, there is a width and height property attached to it, and
Okay.
that would make sense if you were rendering out video. But it doesn't hold a whole lot of meaning for the Lottie files.
Sure.
So are you
But-
able to access those properties in the Lottie JSON in your Xamarin app?
some things you can access, but it's not terribly comprehensive. You can't, like, I was trying to figure out how to get down to specific layers and do, change the properties on particular layers within, within code. And yep. I think there's ways to deal with it on Android, but I don't know if there's a way to deal with it on iOS.
Okay.
So you can do a lot of things with a Lottie animation inside of your project, like picking particular sets of frames you want to play, starting at certain points, playing the animation backwards, stuff like that. But as far as fully cross-platform stuff, I don't know that there's ways to change things like the layers at runtime.
Right. So like at runtime through code, I could change the cat to a bunch of different rainbow colors as it spun around.
Yeah, I think you'd have to probably animate that in After Effects before you put it into the before you put it into your project.
Access the color property and change it on those things, or
I couldn't figure out a way to do that. There might be, but I wasn't able to figure out a way to do that easily.
Cool.
So, but they're expanding the API all the time, so it could be that at some point in the future there will be a way to do that. You would think it wouldn't be that difficult because you're just tapping into a JSON document, but I don't know. It seems to be not possible at this point. So, like I said, this is the animation kind of that I wanted to create. So I've already created the first animation, which is the heads animation. So he lands on his butt with his head up. So that's our heads animation. And let's just talk real quick about this animation and what's kind of making it up. So you can see that I built this entire thing in After Effects, hence it's pretty simple as far as its shapes and everything go. It's basically 3 triangles, 2 circles, a rounded rectangle, and a path. That's pretty much all that makes it up. And these are all parented to the body, all like the tail, nose, eyes, ears are all parented to the body, so that everything that happens to those or to the body happens also to all the other shapes that make up the cat. So when the body jumps and spins, everything else comes along with it. The body then is also parented to a top anchor and a bottom anchor. And the reason I did that was it was just kind of a hack to be able to get the right kind of squishing when he reaches, like when he starts to jump and when he reaches the apex of his jump. I wanted to have the squishing happen in a way that wasn't around an anchor point based inside of the body. I wanted it to be around anchor points at the bottom of the body and at the top of the body to make it look like it was squishing down to the ground and squishing up to the top of the body when it reaches the apex. But we can, for the most part, you can just ignore those. That was just sort of a hack that I did. One of the quick little keyboard shortcuts in here is U, and that'll give you all of your properties that have animated keyframes on them. So that's how I got all of the keyframes to show up there really quick. So basically what I wanted to do is take this animation and create a Tails version of it, where he lands on his head. And I'll just walk through that really quick. So first thing I'm going to do is copy all of these layers out. Create a new composition. It's going to be, we'll call it Flippy Cat Tails. It's 500 by 500, same size as this one. Frame rate's the same, 60. It's full resolution, and it's 5 seconds long, and the background color is white. So there we go. We got Flippy Cat Tails, and then I'm just going to paste in all of those layers from the last one. And this also brings in all of the keyframes. So this animation is exactly identical to the one that we were just looking at. You can see, like, one of the things that happens here is at the end, actually, all these layers disappear from the animation because this is longer than the original Flippy Cat heads. So one of the things I'm going to do here real quick is, well, I've got, oops, I'll select all of these and drag the layers out so that they actually encompass the full 5 seconds of the clip. This tails animation will be a little longer than the other one. So as far as editing and changing these, this animation, the thing that we wanted to do is, instead of rotating 3 times, we wanted to rotate, say, 2.5 times. So I'll come to the second keyframe here, go about halfway. I'm going to grab all of these keyframes and move them back, so that, just to kind of keep everything in sync. And then this keyframe, right now, I don't know if you guys can see this over here, on the body, it has a rotation. It's set to 3, and what I want to do is set it to 2 times and set it to 180. So 2 times revolution, 2 revolutions plus 180 degrees. So there we go. Now, whoops, leave that there, sorry. I'm still editing. Oh, let's go back here. Well, what did I do? Shoot, hold on 1 second, I screwed up. 2 by 180, there. Now, why is it staying upside down? I'm very confused. Oh, I had more than one keyframe chosen. Sorry about that. Sorry, I had more than one keyframe selected, and that's why I was editing more than one. Should have just typed this. Yeah. I'm going to type it. Sorry. 180. There we go. So now, when he flips, I'll jump up. Something else is wrong. I screwed up something else in here. Oh, these are all set to 2 still. So there we go. Or 0. I'm sorry. 0 are these set. This one should be 1. There we go. Apologies. I don't know why I screwed that up. There we go. So now we should have. There we go. And he lands on his head. One of the things that I don't like about this animation right now is that when he flips here, his tail stands up, and the rest of the place, his tail is pretty floppy. So I don't want his tail ending standing up. I want it to end actually flopped down. So I'm going to come in here and change the rotation on the tail. And changing the rotation on the tail won't rotate anything except the tail, because the tail's nothing's parented to the tail. So we should see this flip up, rotate, flop back down again. Now we're still getting some weirdness because this rotation, sorry, there's gonna be a lot of tail work here. Let's delete that keyframe, copy this one, plop it down there. Basically the way that you add keyframes, I don't know if I said this specifically, is you set the this little time marker to a particular point in time, and then you just change the property on the item, and that will set a keyframe there. So now I'm doing that, sits there, and then when he falls, You actually want his tail to stand back up again as if it's lagging behind. So we'll pull that up there and then see how he drops. All right, that's looking pretty good. I think we can live with that. When he hits the ground, we probably want his one ear here to move a little bit so that it's not poking down anymore. So we'll go to the, which ear is that? I think that's the left ear right here. And change, put a on there, we'll put a keyframe there and we'll change the rotation. I don't know, you want a keyframe, oops, start there. Then we'll move to just a little bit farther in the future. So then, now we'll change the rotation so that the ear actually moves correctly when it hits the ground. So now, there we go. I'd say that's a pretty good animation right now. So I hope what I'm trying to show you here is not like super in-depth tutorial on how After Effects works. I'm more trying to show you that creating these animations is fairly simple. Most of the changes that you make are really basic and easy changes. There's not a lot of magic to it to create something as simple as this cat flipping around. I kind of just want people to feel like this isn't a scary thing to jump into if they want to start playing with these. So there you go. Now we've got our second animation. Oh, I don't like where his tail lands. I want it to actually land. So he hits the ground. He hits the ground, his tail should turn a little bit more. Edit this guy so that his tail actually squishes. And we'll give it a little pop back up again here. And then we'll let it pop, let it rest back down again. So there we go. Watch this one more time. Flips, lands, it drops, and it kind of, that's way too fast. So that's getting a little better. There we go. A little better. Now, one of the things, just to kind of show you the power of the graph editor, this area here where his tail actually flips up over the top, it's really fast and it's really sharp. And I don't think I like that. So what I want to do is take all of these and move them out. And then what I really want to do is change the curve on the easing here, so you can, so it has a little different shape. So I'm going to pull this one back a little bit and then do this. So kind of invert the curve a little bit. And that will cause it to kind of, excuse me, geez, slow down at the apex of the flip here when it comes back over, and it'll make it look like it's taking a little longer to get up over the top of its turn there. So I don't know, it's probably hard to, I apologize, it's probably hard to see on Zoom, but where is that?
It's coming through pretty good.
Okay. Oh yeah, I want this to take just a little, I want both of these to take just a little longer. So we're going to drag this out and drag this out. Get a sense for, that's too much. There we go. Let's try that. Yeah, it's not quite right, but you get the general idea. I'm not going to bore you guys with me adjusting curves all night. So anyway, there we go. Now we have our flippy cat tails animation. Pretty basic. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I just did or anything like that before I move on?
Is there a way, and obviously that wouldn't fit your need here necessarily, but like, is there easy ways to like reverse animations? If you say you wanted to like play something one way for one animation, but then you wanted to use the exact same Lottie file to go the reverse, rather than having to have, you know, the exact same one just with, you know, keyframes in reverse, is there a way to like reverse the whole animation?
Yeah, there is actually. So that's something you can do at the code level. So you can just
Cool.
set a speed of -1 on it and it'll reverse it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can also, like I said, once you get into the code, you can stop at particular frames, or you can stop at particular percentages of the animation, or stop and start. You can set the start to be at a particular frame or at a particular percentage of the animation. So if you had several animations that you wanted to kind of spin out to have do different things. So like if you got to halfway through one and a user interaction, you wanted to cause it to go one of two ways, you know, like I wanted to do this next animation or one of two different animations, you could stop it at that particular frame and play a different animation there as well. So there's some things you can do in code that are pretty neat. And they're a little simpler to deal with, I think, than some of the native APIs. That's one of the things I didn't talk about with this. The only way to get kind of this level of animation performance is to start tinkering with the native like animation and graphics APIs, which is really cool and fun to do, but it requires a lot more math and a lot more a lot more work as far as coding goes. Whereas doing it all graphically in After Effects is, I think personally, quite a bit easier. But then again, my brain works more in the graphic sense. So I think we're about ready to export our little Lottie file here. Let's actually, just move these guys out a little bit. So he blinks at the right time. And there, jumps, blinks, does a spin, blinks, and lands. Okay, perfect. So to export this, the first thing that I'm going to do is into the composition here and trim the composition to the, oops, actually I need to set our work area. So this little slider here will change the duration of your work area. So now we'll actually repeat right at the end of there. You can kind of see this red, maybe you can't see the red line, sorry. Basically the animation will repeat as soon as it hits this, even though our work is, or even though the actual composition is longer than that, it's only going to go to like 4 seconds and 24 frames or 23 frames or something like that. And then it'll repeat. And that's where we want it to be. So if you can see the red line, you'll see it go through and then immediately start over again. So what I want to do is now trim our composition to the work area. And that one will make it so that we're not, there we go, trim composition to the work area. And now the whole work area is, or the whole composition is only 4 seconds and 23 frames or something like that. So we just dumped a little over half a second or so. There we go. So now, if you have the Lottie files extension installed with After Effects, exporting these things is just a piece of cake. We have the two flippy cat heads and flippy cat tails. You can see in the Lottie files extension window up here. And basically, you just click on those and you can upload them or save them to the PC. Today, I'm actually going to upload them and then go copy them out for a website because I was having a problem with saving them to the PC earlier. the animations weren't running for some reason. So I'm just going to upload Flippy Cat heads to the website. And then I'm going to go back here and upload Flippy Cat tails.
So Adam, if you notice, there's a background option, export there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice.
and you can, as I said, you can change the background on after the fact, either here or on Lottie File's website. So that's kind of nice. So there we go. We have our two. If we go back to the website, we'll see these. Where'd you go, Safari? So I'll go back to my oh man, that was not good for some reason. What just happened? Hello. My previews, there we go. I don't know if it's because of the Zoom call, but my Safari's kind of dogging a little bit. So here are the two previews now here. You can see, which is pretty cool. There you go. As I said, I'm actually gonna go copy these out, which is kind of annoying. Normally you could just export the JSON right to your desktop. But that was a little problematic for me earlier. So I'm gonna go here, grab this, copy it, plop it into a file. So I'll just take a second, sorry. Save it as the big cat heads. Save it to .json. And all of these are as JSON files. They're just .json files. There's no special extension with them. And then we'll do, close this, grab Flippy Cat tails. Copy. Cat tails. All right. Oh, so you had, this is the JSON, Scott, to answer your earlier question. Here, I've got it in Visual Studio Code. Let me just do, is it Shift Command P, prettify. You can see it. It's a movie. You can probably parse it out and figure out what's going on, but it's, I wouldn't say it was meant to be edited by hand. Things are pretty obscure.
Probably optimized for playback.
Yeah. So, all right, there we go. So there we go. Now I will show you how to use these inside of a Xamarin project. Oops. So the first thing in a Xamarin project that you need to do is actually download the Lottie NuGet packages, which is pretty simple. Manage NuGet packages. You have to put them in both your Forms and your native projects. I've only got an iOS project in this one. I didn't bother doing a Xamarin one, Android one, just to save time. Let's just do Lottie. What you want for a Forms project is this Airbnb Xamarin.Forms.Lottie. And add that, and then README, and do the same thing in the Forms project. There we go. Then for both a Xamarin and Android and iOS project, you have to go into this app delegate and add a little init statement for animation views, which are here. So it's basically just animation view renderer.init. It pulls in Lottie.forms.iOS renderers. And this is essentially just telling your project to, if you see an animation view, render it using Lottie. Then in our main page, I've got, so I'm using C# for markup here. That's why the format might look a little different for this grid. But basically, I've just got a grid here with 5 rows in it, and the center row is where I want to start. I want to place the Lottie animations. So the first thing I'll do is add a variable for the heads animation. I'm keeping this really simple, and I'm just going to have 2 separate animations kind of layered on top of each other.
Hey Joe, could you boost your font size a little bit?
Oh, sure. Zoom in until I don't give a lot of presentations because I don't know all the keyboard shortcuts. Is that better, or do you want it a little bigger?
I think that's better, maybe a little bit bigger, but I think that's much better than it was. Thank you.
Okay, let me just do it a little bigger then. All right, so I'm adding, sorry, where was I? Just added a variable for the animation view for the heads animation. And as I said, I'm just gonna plop these in, both animations in separately, right on top of each other, and just control it with whether the animation view is visible or not, just to keep things simple. And then here is what an animation view looks like. So it's got a whole bunch of other properties on it that I'm not touching here, but basically, in order to get it to play, oh, you know what I didn't do? Come back to this in just a second. I didn't add the resources. So let's go and add the resources. Desktop, cat heads, and tails, JSON. And all you have to do is bring these into the resources files. You don't, they don't require any special sort of build properties or anything like that. They're just bundled resources. So that is a really simple step. So back to here, let's just take a look at this animation view real quick. Basically, you pass it the name of the resource that you want to use. So here it's flippycat.json, flippycatheads.json. We're telling it we don't want it to loop when it's done. We just want it to stop. That will still keep it visible. It won't. It'll just be. It'll just show you the final frame of the animation when it stops. And I'm going to set it is playing to false because we don't actually want it to play until we hit our flip button down here. Then down here under heads, so this is my kind of ridiculous heads and tails algorithm here. Under here, we're going to say this dot heads animation dot play. So anytime it comes up heads, we want it to play that animation. Let's run this and see what happens. So now you can see we've got our cat here. And if we flip for heads, he does his flip and he lands. That's great. Problem is we probably don't want the results to show before he actually does his flip. So what you can do here is tie into the animations view on finish property. And we'll plop that into our constructor. And it's basically the heads animation on finish. And we're just going to say that the button won't be enabled until it's done, and we won't show the heads text until it's done. And then we'll come down here, we'll remove those from here. So now if we run it again, what? VM is not suspended. Debugger operation failed. Boy, that's new. Let's try this again. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Coming through loud and clear.
Good. So we got tails, so it's not going to do anything. There we go. Now we got a heads animation. Flips, he lands, and it's heads. All right. And now let's do the same thing for the tails animation. We'll grab put in a new variable for the tails animation. We're going to plop them into the same row here. So this is the tails animation. We're not looping. It's not playing when it gets drawn, and it's not visible either. I just turned its visibility off so that it wouldn't interfere with the heads animation, which has a nice resting start and stop animation, or resting start and stop frame. Now let's do the same thing for the results. We don't want the results to show up early, so we'll pop another on finish handler up here, and down here we'll get rid of this, and we'll say this dot tails animation dot play, and let's run. Oh, actually, one of the things we need to do first is make sure that we control visibility based on which number. So when it's going to be heads, we want to hide the tails animation and show the heads animation. And when it's going to be tails, we want to do the opposite. Right, first flip. Hey, and it's tails. There we go. Now, because of the way these are layered on top of each other, we actually want the animations to we want the tails animation to reset to its starting frame, because if we don't, we're going to get a little jitter in here when it's flipping back and forth between the two. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say every time we run this command, we're actually going to set the progress of the tails animation to 0. Progress is basically just a percentage of progress within the animation. So 0 is the very first frame, and 99 is the very last frame. Or I'm sorry, not 99. It's a float, so it would be 0.99. Would be the very last frame, or 100%, I guess. That's done, and then I'll play this one last time. And then Adam, you were asking about reversing animations. I'll show you that in just a second here. It's really simple. So there we go, that's working. Now let's come back here. And instead of playing the tails animation the correct way, let's just say this tails animation dot speed equals -1. I think that's the correct way. Should be heads. There goes tails. And he flips back.
Nice.
So that is how you control that. So on these animation views, you can do other things. You can control the speed. I mean, there's tons of properties here you can control, but the ones related to Lottie in particular are have to do with like playing and pausing and play progress, play frames. So you can actually jump to particular frames if you know, like if you have an animation that you want, that you know the exact frame on which you want it to start because of some user related action, you can start it there. You can play frame segments, which are just a start and stop portion of a frame, or a frame progress, so a start and stop percentage of the animation. Play things backwards and forwards. You can change the speed. Anyway, that's some of the stuff that you can do within the animation view. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to talk about. Does anybody have any questions about the Xamarin integration here?
Well, one question from me. So you said when you imported that JSON file, you said you didn't have to change the build action because I think it defaults to bundle resource on iOS, and Android I think is like Android asset maybe. Is there a way, rather than having to, like, say you're doing an iOS and Android Forms project, is there a way that you can import the JSON into your net standard shared code rather than having to have multiple copies in your solution and then reference it through the shared code?
That is a good question that I don't know the answer to. I don't know, and mostly I don't know because I haven't done a project with both iOS and Android in a while. I've been doing almost all iOS, so I haven't had to encounter that. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I'm guessing
every tutorial that I read had you, and pulling it into the specific projects, but that's not necessarily. That doesn't mean that that's the only way to do it.
Hey, Adam, Mike here. I've had good success using linked files with like asset files, using like a standard .NET linked file in the CS Proj.
Okay.
When you link up to the shared code area, that's worked for me a lot of scenarios.
Cool. So looks like you can also use Lottie in HTML and some other things as well.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about it is the animations can be played on the web, on mobile, on desktop. It's and you instead of having to write like low-level code for every single platform, you can create this animation once and run it on all sorts of different platforms, which is nice. Kind of goes along with the cross-platform theme of Xamarin.
Yeah, cool. You ever heard of Animation Composer for After Effects?
No, I haven't.
It's a really cool tool. If you go to mrhorse.com, it's a free plugin for After Effects.
Okay.
And it's a super awesome tool for making motion graphics. So like how you were demonstrating how you had to go through all the keyframes and tweak all the things and mess around with the graph editor, it simplifies a lot of that for you with some kind of like some pre-canned motions and stuff that you can apply to anything and everything.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
by using this tool, you can like speed up your motion graphics development quite a bit. And if you're not an expert at After Effects, which I certainly am not, you can use this tool to make it look like you are.
That's slick. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's called Animation Composer. So
cool.
Check it out. It's pretty cool.
Joe, so Lottie seems to be the glue between After Effects and then the Xamarin or the mobile world and HTML other things. Is there anything else out there like it?
I don't know. I haven't used anything else like it. I know that Lottie is very popular right now, but I did not go and investigate whether there were other tools like it.
There are some other tools that I've seen, but I do think Lottie is probably the most popular, especially since it's with its integration with After Effects, which is the tool of choice for motion graphics and animations. 2D animations anyways.
What is the Lottie? What's the cost for using Lottie?
There isn't one.
So Lottie's free?
Yep, the Lottie, so using the Lottie plugins is free, and using, and plus you can get a lot of the animations off their website for free. Some of them do have a cost associated with them, but most of them are free.
All right, but you got to pay for After Effects.
Yeah, that's the cost.
Ooh.
Well, what you can do is you can install After Effects into a virtual machine, use it for 30 days, or install it on your regular machine for free for 30 days. Trial.
True.
Yep. Any other questions or comments?
I think my only other comment would be, so the guy who ported this over to Xamarin, his name's Martin, I believe is his name. I think he's from the Netherlands. I met him actually last year at the Developer Summit in Houston. Super awesome guy, super active in the community. I know he works on this, MVVM Cross. I think he did some stuff with like the Xamarin Media Manager. Super great guy, and I think you know, he'd obviously, you know, love the shout out. And also I think, you know, if you're ever looking to contribute, I'm sure that there's plenty of projects of his that you could help assist with, or maybe I know some of these GitHub pages now you can help sponsor some of these open source contributors, but he's done a lot for the Xamarin community.
That's cool.
Otherwise, I think this was excellent. Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, I wasn't trying to give a deep dive in any of this. I just wanted to make it so that people would understand sort of how the how to do some of the basics in case you wanted to start exploring it yourself. So hope everybody got something out of it.
Yep, it was great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the time.
Yes. All right, everybody, let's give Joe a hand, or a virtual hand.
Woo!
Yep. Good job, Joe.
Thanks.
Real nice. And great cat animation, by the way. I liked your cat. You
Thanks.
you're doing all the right things with anticipation and squash and momentum and all the things that look really good.
Oh, thank you.